It's Movie Time is brought to you by the Gateway Film Center, 1550 North High Street, Columbus, Ohio. For their details and showtimes online at gatewayfilmcenter.org.
It's Movie Time is produced by John DeSando. Listen to shows and read reviews online at WCBE.org.
I'm John DeSando.
And I'm Kevin Carr.
And this is It's Movie Time. And Kevin?
Yes?
It comes at night.
The big question is...
Yes, what is it? But also, isn't that kind of it's a horror film. And isn't it kind of a riff on a title you might have for a horror film?
Yeah, I mean,
it's such a stupid title.
For people who love horror movies, which is me, I was really looking forward to it because the title looked cool. The original teaser looked very creepy. And it sort of felt like maybe something that would have been done by the people who did, You're Next or It Follows or some of those newer, very deliberately directed horror films.
Not 10 Cloverfield Lane?
No, well that's so like big budget.
Yeah, okay.
I mean, I'm talking about some of the smaller stuff,
okay.
Because there's kind of this resurgence in like underground horrors for this this grassroots, this smaller, independent horror, because we had all that found footage garbage for so long.
Yeah, Blair Witch really started it.
Yeah, that's what started. Yeah. What really kicked it off, though, was stuff like Paranormal Activity. Then we had this glut of found footage, and sort of like there was this swinging of the pendulum back to do stuff very deliberate and atmospheric and quiet with music and sound, and that's what I was expecting.
Oh dear, I can tell where we're going.
Well, there's also this great poster of it that has the back of the dog's head looking out into the woods.
Right, I know.
And you're like, ooh, what comes at night?
Oh, Kevin. And then look at it, for those of you who are looking at the video,
not bad.
If you can see it, this monster is not in this movie at all. No. I mean, what is the monster?
It comes at night. It does essentially what Cabin Fever did 15 years ago, which was take something that's realistic, a biological issue, like a strain or a virus or a plague, and make that the monster.
Yeah.
And that was done very deliberately in Cabin Fever by Eli Roth, where it was a slasher movie with flesh-eating bacteria as the bad guy.
Yeah.
As a killer. And this one, it's a plague.
It's in a cave. It's in a cabin.
Mm-hmm.
And you
cabin
have
in the woods.
The little family unit
mm-hmm.
trying to protect itself because this is post-apocalyptic stuff.
Something happened.
Yeah, something happened. Has been wiped out much of the world.
Mm-hmm.
And naturally, as in, I always love Flannery O'Connor's stories because it's the outsider who changes things.
Yeah.
And so while you're trying to insulate yourself, and this stars Joel Edgerton,
mm-hmm.
who makes it very edgy, I thought.
Edgerton-y.
Yeah. Yes, I know. And so from the outside comes another family. Let's shorten it by just saying another family. That they really, in human terms, you have to accept them in.
Yeah.
As long as they're not diseased, because it's communicable.
Well, and that's the whole thing. Is it's to that's the challenge for your humanity. I mean, how the best thing to do if strangers show up is to not let them in.
Yes.
That seems to be a theme,
right,
on a lot of things,
and in Cloverfield for sure.
In Cloverfield, and just in global politics too.
Right.
That's
exactly.
a real theme.
Good point. Yes.
And
isolationism is the real theme here.
Yeah.
And on a world political scene, it is appropriate.
Yeah, I mean, there's the easiest way to protect yourself from outsiders is just not let them in.
But it sounds familiar to me.
Yeah, but what does that say about you as in humanity?
Yeah, oh boy.
Yeah. So I mean, seriously, there are these undertones that have huge themes.
Yes.
To them.
Yeah. Now, when the conflict rises up, is when that disease would seem to have made an incursion into the house, and because hasn't there been tension anyway, the kind of normal tension that might come when a new family comes in, particularly a threesome again.
Well, let's talk about the tensions you're going to have with your own family living in a cabin in the middle of the woods.
Thank you, yes.
With nowhere to escape to.
Exactly. Let me not forget that for sure. There's enough there material, but bring in somebody else.
Yeah.
and the young son. It's a mixed race family,
Mhm.
Edgerton's family.
Yeah.
And the young son is fascinated, I think, in some way, by the new family.
Well, of course he is. Yeah, because we're not given a whole lot of perspective on what had happened leading up to this. We just know that there's some bad stuff that happened, and they'd lost somebody, and we don't really know what the kid's experience. Because when you say young, he's a teenager.
He's 17.
Yeah. So I mean, he's at that age where your impulse is to go out and experience the world.
Yes.
But that could kill you.
Yeah. And that's right. That is one of the real tensions.
Yeah.
And much of the film work has him centered, the young man centered in the shot, so that we're getting something like his point of view, and it is the mixed up emotions that he has.
Yeah.
Devotion to his family, interest in the man who seems to take him in a different way than his father does. Interest
Kind of like an uncle kind of thing.
Yeah. And teaches him how to split wood.
Yeah.
And father, played by Edgerton, actually probably getting a little edgy again.
Overly protective.
Overly protective. And the young wife is attractive to the young man.
Yes.
And you know, if I could find, now I like this film much more than you did. I suspect as we get to the end of our program, I know what's going to happen. But I do say one of the flaws I saw was this whole business about how he's attracted to this wife.
Yeah.
Drops. Kevin, it's gone. Is that just a moment to let us know that he's a hormonal teenager?
Well, I think it's just showing the different tension. I mean, you got the guy who's sort of an uncle kind of surrogate father figure, and you've got, and even though his father's there, again, you're locked in. Imagine as a 17-year-old, you were locked with your father for, in the apocalypse. I mean, it's gonna be rough,
Right.
And then the woman appeals to his sexuality, just because she's not related to him and she's attractive. And then they have a young son who is like 5 or 6 or something like that. So then there's that sort of like the big brother attitude. So it's like, it's an introduction to his emotions, and that's why he would be sort of that audience surrogate, because he's brought in, and everybody else has, the father's there, we're keeping everybody safe. The mom's there to keep everybody sane and together.
Yeah.
Everybody has their own agenda. So I mean, there's a lot of depth to be said about this movie.
Now, one of the things I liked also, Kev, was it didn't seem to have some of the usual tropes of a horror film, and I'm thinking particularly about jump scares.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? It really seemed to eschew a lot of the things that we have come to expect.
There were a couple in there.
Okay.
I think there were a couple that played on the buildup of tension and then a loud noise or something.
The tracking to the door.
Yes.
The red door.
Yeah.
Oops.
That happens a couple times.
Yes, it does. Yeah. So that's a motif.
See, I would actually counter that and say that it has all these elements of. I would say it has all these elements of a horror film, but it's not really a horror film.
Okay.
And I think that becomes a little bit dangerous when you're trying to market it as a horror film.
Oh.
I mean, I would classify this as more of a thriller. And we've had several of these, and I can't remember all the names of them. There was one with Evan Rachel Wood and Ellen Page, where they were left in an apocalypse, and you had this zombie movie with Arnold Schwarzenegger and Abigail Breslin, and then you had this movie with like Chris Pine and Chiwetel Ejiofor and Margot Robbie, where they were kind of stuck in an apocalypse. This is very easy to shoot from an independent perspective because you just need a cabin in the woods. It's the old-fashioned thing of Sam Raimi just going out in the cabin in Tennessee, And
I think you're right. I think it's a mystery as well.
Yeah.
Because there's certainly a lot of unknowns happening here, and there's danger.
Yeah.
I mean, clearly, he has his bolt-action rifle.
Yeah.
To protect them, and he has to use that baby.
Yeah.
And you have to dispatch some people for the reason that you open up with is in order for you to survive, you don't let people in.
And there's clearly something out there.
Yeah. And
there is something.
Well, don't you think it's more like the bubonic plague?
It's just a plague.
The grandpa and then you see the grandpa with the boils on his face.
Yeah. Well, and that's the thing. That's like I say, going back to Cabin Fever, where it's not necessarily a monster embodied as a monster, it's a threat.
Yes, yeah.
And you even see that in the opening credits. They have this imagery of of classic paintings and
Oh,
paintings of the plague.
Bruegel, I think it is.
Yeah.
The one where you have the kind of the human race stretched out,
Yes.
and it's all kinds of chaos going
Yeah.
on in that. Yeah, he does. He pans that photo.
And even then, back then you had that's where some of this imagery comes from. It's the manifestations of not just the dangers of ourselves, but just the dangers of biology.
Right, and some of them reference to the plague.
Yeah.
And so we've all seen those pretty devastating
Yeah.
paintings about that. Well, Kevin Carr,
Yes.
the film is called It Comes at Night.
Yes.
What grade would you award it?
I'm conflicted because it's a well-made movie,
Right, I knew you would be.
but I don't think it quite delivers on the horror that you'd expect. I'm going to say B- out of respect for what they're trying to do. I just wish there would have been more it in it.
Well, of course, I have the deepest respect for you, but I'm much simpler when I come to this. So I have an A- with it because it scared the living bejesus out of me, and it didn't have the severity of some horror films that I have seen.
Yeah.
And we opened up with the notion of it being realistic, and I think you're absolutely right. There
Sure.
is something terribly realistic. But anyway, in the summertime, it's good to be scared now and then,
Yeah.
and watch out because it comes at night.